For pretty much all of human history, getting to space meant building an absolute masterpiece of engineering and then just throwing it away every single time. But what if you could actually teach a rocket to come back home? Well, that's what we're going to get into today. The incredible story of how one company's obsession with reusability completely flipped the script on our access to the final frontier.
Just think about that for a second. A massive, multi-million-dollar airliner used for just one flight and then ditched in the ocean. It sounds completely insane, right? It would be financially impossible. And yet, for over 50 years, that's exactly how we treated rockets. This one question, right here, it just gets to the very heart of the economic madness that was holding space exploration back for so long.
So, let's kick things off by looking at how things used to be. For decades, every single trip to orbit was a one-way ticket for the rocket that took us there. I mean, the sheer scale of the waste was just staggering. We're talking about these unbelievably complex machines packed with state-of-the-art engines, fuel tanks, guidance systems, all of it built to the most exacting standards imaginable. And then, after just a few minutes of glorious flight, they became the world's most expensive piece of garbage. This wasn't just wasteful, it was the fundamental reason space was so expensive. And this number really drives that point home. $18,500. That was the average price tag to send a single kilogram, that's about the weight of a pineapple, into low Earth orbit. At that price, you can imagine even the smallest, simplest satellite was a massive investment.
So what's the bottom line here? Well, it wasn't just an engineering problem. It was an access problem. This throwaway model created this huge barrier to entry. If you weren't a global superpower or a giant government agency with a basically unlimited budget, well, space was pretty much closed for business.
But then a new player showed up on the scene with an idea so radical, so audacious, that pretty much the entire established industry just dismissed it as total science fiction.
And what happened next is the textbook definition of this right here. While all the legacy aerospace giants were focused on making their expendable rockets just a little bit better, a little more efficient, this newcomer, SpaceX, came in and attacked the problem from a completely different angle. They focused on the one thing that could change the economics of the entire game: reusability.
And this, right here, this was their why. It was never just about launching satellites a bit cheaper. The long-term vision was always way bigger, almost out of a sci-fi novel, to actually establish a human presence beyond Earth. But they knew from day one, the only way to even begin to dream about that was to solve the staggering cost of launch. Reusability wasn't just a cool feature, it was the entire plan.
I love this quote because it just perfectly captures the spirit of those early days. It's not some bold proclamation of guaranteed success. It's hopeful, sure, but it's also cautious. A chance, that's all they thought they had. I mean, they were trying to land an object the size of a skyscraper on a tiny little platform floating in the middle of the ocean after it had just screamed its way to the edge of space. It was nuts.
Of course, having the idea is one thing, but actually making it work? Well, that's another thing entirely. The road to that first successful landing was paved with some pretty spectacular failures and just an incredible amount of grit and persistence.
This timeline really tells the whole story, doesn't it? They started out with a totally conventional rocket. Then they just started trying. Those 2014 attempts were fascinating. They were basically controlled crashes. But here's the thing. They proved the rocket could get back to the right spot and slow itself down. Then, boom. December 2015, it all came together. Everything worked. And from there, it was all about refinement, which led us to the Block 5, a true workhorse rocket designed from the ground up to be flown over and over again.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the results of all that hard work. I mean, look at this. The rocket didn't just become reusable, it became so much more capable, taller, way more powerful, and able to carry more than double the payload to orbit. This shows that it wasn't just about saving money, it was about creating a dramatically better launch vehicle through constant, relentless iteration.
Now get this. This quote, from the same year SpaceX was trying to splash land its boosters, shows you just how skeptical the rest of the industry was. This wasn't seen as some imminent breakthrough, it was considered a distant, maybe even impossible dream. And then, just 1 year after this was said, SpaceX landed its first rocket.
So, they pulled it off. They did the impossible. What happened next? Well, landing the rocket was just the beginning. The real revolution was what this did to the cost of getting to space.
Wow. This chart, this is a visual gut punch. We're not talking about a small improvement here. This is an order of magnitude drop in cost. It is, quite literally, the disruption in a single image.
This one change completely rewrote the rules for the entire space industry.
In this number, 454, it just shows you how routine the once impossible has now become. As of 2025, over 400 successful landings. What used to be a nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat experiment is now a standard, almost boring part of every single launch. It just works.
So what do you do with that kind of cheap access to orbit? Well, you unlock everything. Suddenly, launching thousands of satellites to create a global internet network like Starlink becomes totally possible. Universities and small startups can now afford to send their own experiments to space. And that dream of space tourism, well, it starts to look like a real possibility. This is the new space economy, and it's all built on the back of a rocket that learned how to land.
But here's the thing. For SpaceX, making space cheaper was never the end game. It was just step one towards a much, much bigger goal.
The Falcon 9 was the proof of concept. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that reusable rockets worked and that they could completely transform the economics of spaceflight. But the ambition was always Mars. And to get to Mars, they were going to need something even bigger, even more capable, and fully reusable.
And here is the roadmap. It's just breathtakingly ambitious. Step 1 is Starship, the successor to the Falcon 9, designed to be completely and rapidly reusable. Then, you send the robots and all the heavy gear. Step 3 is absolutely critical. You have to learn to live off the land, making your own rocket fuel on Mars. And only then do you begin the final, incredible step of actually building a city on another planet.
Okay, this might be one of the most fascinating little details in this whole story. Tucked away in the legal terms of service for their satellite internet, SpaceX just casually laid out a political vision for their future Mars colony. It's wild. It shows they're not just thinking about the engineering problems, but about the very nature of a new human society on a whole other world.
And that's where we're going to leave it. You know, the first revolution in reusability, the Falcon 9, it opened up the space right above our heads. It created entire new industries and made space accessible in a way we're still getting our heads around. The next revolution, full reusability, aims to open up the entire solar system. The question is no longer if we can do it, but what are we going to do when we get there?